Hello friends, glad you could join me. So in my previous video, I talked about Gaijin's 2022 roadmap for the 4th generation fighters that will be showing up this year. Then I started thinking about ground forces. We have lots of aviation content coming, but is it the same for ground? Is Gaijin close to running out of top tier main battle tanks that can be added to the game? The question has been asked multiple times by the community. Now I'm going to go through each nation and discuss what's left for end-of-line main battle tanks. But back to the main question, is Gaijin close to running out of end-of-line tanks that could be added to the game? So to that I say yes and no. Let me explain. There are multiple light armored vehicles that can still be added, but main battle tanks are not quite the same, and that's what I'm going to focus on in this video. These kings of the battlefield endure for what is often decades, and during that time period, they're continuously upgraded so they can adapt to the most modern battlefield environments. But there is a finite amount of modern MBTs to put in the game. After that, we're into future MBT concepts, if we're even calling them main battle tanks anymore. Whether they're a system of combat systems, unmanned or optionally manned, there will still be an armored core to any modern army. Alright, so I have a few caveats here before we jump into discussing the tanks themselves. For the future of War Thunder, Gaijin will need to fully embrace the nuanced variants of current modern MBTs. But also they need to embrace prototypes and technology demonstrators, especially if they want to keep the content pumping. And that's unless they want to start making things up, based on paper designs. And I know that's quite unpopular with many players, including myself. Now you guys probably know this already, but I'm going to say it for the benefit of the full audience. The reason why we don't get every possible variant of every tank is because some of those variants, the changes that they have in them, Gaijin really can't model any of those changes at all. They're very good with modeling like big changes like firepower, armor, optics, mobility. But in other areas where tanks have, substantial changes like improvements in multispectral signature reduction, fire control, target acquisition, and battlefield situational awareness, Gaijin isn't really modeling those areas of the game, so they probably need to work on those so that the technology could, be modeled in the game with new mechanics. So I'm going to start off with the US here, looking at the two, main end-of-line tanks, the M60 Patton series and the M1 Abrams series of tanks. Alright, so let's start off with the Abrams. Gaijin has plenty of room here to add a couple more variants. The M1A1HA, the M1A2, SEP V2, SEP V3, and SEP V4. Alright, so this certainly isn't an all-inclusive list, so, Ameribus don't come for me. Just kidding, but I did skip over a couple variants that have some improvements that are really not value added right now. Mostly I'm talking about the export variants of the Abrams. So the main point here is Gaijin could trickle out new versions of the Abrams for a couple more years. We're not in immediate danger of running out of Abrams tanks to add. But to get the most out of these new variants of the Abrams, we're going to need new mechanics in the game to take advantage of the changes. So if we move over to the prototype technology demonstrator side of things with the Abrams, there's still the M1 TTB, the CA TTB, and the M1 Thumper, that Gaijin has yet to add. Now a lot of those prototypes and technology demonstrators could probably end up on the event vehicle list or maybe even as a premium. Alright, so looking at the M60 Patton series, we still have multiple versions of that venerable tank that could be added to the game. For example, the Turkish M60T Sabra series, the Sabra Mark 1, 2, and 3. And there's also the M60 TM. These are all advanced Turkish army versions of the M60 that have yet to hit the game. And if you like the M60, there's still more to love. We have the M60 2000 120S prototype, which had an Abrams turret, kind of looks like a Frankenstein. We have the RTE M60 MBT, which is a heavily upgraded Thai M60, and we have the M60 A3 Chariot, used by Taiwan, which is also heavily updated. Alright, so looking towards Germany now, the other big nation in the game, Gaijin has plenty of Leopard 2 tanks they could still add here as well. We got the 2A6M, the 2A7, the 2A7 Plus, the 2A4M Canadian, the Leopard 2 Evolution, the Leopard 2 Revolution, and the Leopard 2 PL, and it has a couple sub-variants there. So you can see there's a lot of Leo 2s. I'm probably skipping over some. A lot of these Leos aren't even in the game yet. Some of them have new armor packages and guns, some with just improved fire control and battle awareness tools and target acquisition capacity. So lots of content for sure, but again, to make the most out of these, we need new mechanics to take advantage of them. With some nations like France, Gaijin may indeed be getting closer to the end of the line. We have all of the main Leclercs. All that's left are the Leclerc XLR Scorpion. We could also see the Azura Urban Warfare Kit, or even the UAE Tropicalized Leclerc. But the outlook isn't good for France at top tier for MBTs. I guess Gaijin could always add the Leclerc prototype, but as you can see, we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here. And again, please let me know if there's something I missed. So next up, I'm going to talk about Russia. We're starting to approach the end for Russian tanks, but it's definitely not as bad as France. The T-72B3M is available to add. On the T-80 series, we still have the T-80UD, which is a diesel version of the tank. And of course, we have the entire line of T-84 series from the Ukraine. We should get quite a few variants from this line. The T-90 line still has a few variants, but lots of them are for the export market. Of course, there's the T-14 Armata, which is really the end. But at the moment, that is a few years off. Gaijin still has relatively plenty of Russian tanks to add. On the prototype side of things though, I really would like to see the Black Eagle. I really wasn't able to find that much information on it, but from what I did see, it looks like a pretty interesting concept. Alright, so next up is Britain, and the situation is a little bit more dire for Britain. Really are at the end of the line for them. There's no production vehicles, no production tanks going on right now. The Charlie 2 is out of production. I know we just got the Challenger 2 TES, Theater Entry Standard, and there was some controversy why wasn't that one the Charlie 2 Megatron. I guess that one's still out there, although it was used for trials, so that could be introduced. We have the Challenger 2E, an export version. Don't really know the status of that one. And then last up is the Rheinmetall BAE Land Systems Test Bid or Technology Demonstrator. Alright, so let's talk about one of the smaller nations, Sweden. So it should be no surprise here that Sweden doesn't really have much to add. Looking at their top tier MBT, the STRV 122, there's scant information on an upgraded B, the C model that's out there, but I really couldn't find anything else on that. If anybody else has more information, please hit me up in the comments. And there's also an STRV 122B Plus version, which used the Evolution armor package, and also scant information on that as well. So Sweden's looking at probably not much to add when it comes to top tier MBTs. I think we're going to continue to see a lot of growth from China in the coming years. We have the ZTZ-99A1, the A2, the ZTZ-99G, and of course, I've probably missed some of the mission variants on these Chinese mainline MBTs as they continue to upgrade these as well. There's also the Type 15, which I didn't put on the list here because it's a light tank, and I probably would get to that in another video. But there's also the VT4, which is an export version of the ZTZ-99. Another one, a notable mention, not on the slide, is the VT5, and that is a export version of the Type 15. So a light tank as well. If this video does well, I might think about addressing light vehicles in another video. So you can see China's going to be alright with end-of-line MBTs for quite a while. Okay, so back to one of the smaller nations, similar to the situation with Sweden. We all knew Japan really didn't have much to add in the first place. We finally got the Type 10. It's been a long time, but we finally got it. But you see, there's not much to go here. We could possibly get 2 new Type 10s. They wouldn't really be new. They would just have their modular armor package. Like there's a level 1, there's a level 2. So we could get Type 10s with additional armor. We could possibly get a prototype Type 10. But after that, that's pretty much the end for Japanese top tier MBTs. Alright, so looking forward for Italy with their MBTs, the Ariete seems to have been forgotten by Gaijin, but not in real life. The Italian government has embarked on a modernization program for the tank, and he announced just this month that the program will address mainly mobility and target acquisition shortcomings. There's supposed to be up to 3 prototypes to test the different components of the upgrade. One of the prototypes will have an improved hull, one's supposed to have a new turret, and the other one combines the two. You can take it with a grain of salt. This information is kind of sketchy. But that could mean up to 3 prototype Arietes, and then we would have the new Ariete, the modernized version of it. However, in the game, I don't really expect for the situation to change for Italy drastically. I think we're gonna keep going with just the Arietes that we have, at least for the next 2 years. So the last nation we have here is Italy, and since it's new to the game and the tech tree, the ground forces tech tree, hasn't even hit the game yet, I'm gonna leave this one alone. I want to see what Gaijin actually puts into the tech tree before I start to dissect it, looking at what's left. And I know there's a lot of cats and dogs out there, smaller nations with maybe 1 or 2 main battle tanks that can be added to the game. There's nations like Poland, South Korea, maybe even India and Turkey that I'd like to address. But I'm going to leave those nations alone for their end-of-line MBTs. If this video does well and there's interest in it, I'll consider doing another video on those nations and their top-tier MBTs. Alright, so if you're still here, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. And the algorithm appreciates it. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that'd be great. Even consider subscribing, that'd be awesome. And I know the vehicles, the tanks that I picked, certainly not all inclusive, so hit me up in the comments if there's something you know about, or maybe I got some information incorrect. I'd really love to hear from you. But thanks again. I'll see you in a future video.